All right, I think we can get started. Folks will join in as I start introductions, but welcome, good morning. It's really great to be here. My name is Abby Royce, and I'm a research manager at the Bay Area Council's Economic Institute. I also just want to apologize if there's any construction noise in the background. Just the nature of working from home, not great timing, but so far so good. I just want to welcome everyone to the Bay Area Council's Bay Area Impact webinar series presented by Genentech. Today, we're going to be talking about the life sciences, one of the booming industry sectors in the Bay Area right now. Since California's global life science industry was founded nearly 50 years ago in the Bay Area, our region is now home to nearly 3,400 life sciences companies that support 3,888 jobs and $139 million in economic activity. And even through one of the most difficult economic periods in generations, the life sciences sector has really flourished, and it in turn has deepened and expanded the Bay Area's global innovation leadership. So today we'll be exploring how the life sciences industry is reshaping and redefining the Bay Area's innovation economy, and what the broader competitive landscape really looks like. We'll also be exploring what challenges threaten the ability of life sciences companies to grow here, and what we can do to address those challenges. So before we get started, the Bay Area Council extends our deepest thanks to one of our region's life sciences pioneers and giants, Genentech, for sponsoring this important conversation. So it is now my great honor to introduce a brief message from Genentech CEO Alexander Hardy.
Hello. As the pioneer of the biotechnology industry, Genentech started in the San Francisco Bay Area over 4 decades ago. Today, Genentech remains at the core of the life sciences sector in California, a place where groundbreaking medical treatments are discovered, developed, and manufactured. Every day in our state, Genentech invests in innovation, job creation, infrastructure, and expanding opportunities for California workers. We currently operate 3 manufacturing sites in California, including one of the largest manufacturing sites in the world right here in the Bay Area. Over the last 45 years, Genentech has grown from a handful of employees working in a rented warehouse in South San Francisco to a leading biotechnology company, employing over 12,000 people statewide, all of whom are working to discover, develop, and manufacture life-changing medicines for people battling some of the most difficult to treat diseases. Genentech is proud to be a leader in healthcare innovation. Each year, we invest nearly $13 billion in R&D. The result is a development pipeline with over 80 molecules in clinical development. So you might ask, what is our secret to innovation? Well, a major component of our innovation strategy is embracing the increasingly diverse world around us. At Genentech, we believe that diversity of backgrounds and perspectives united behind a common purpose to improve the lives of patients drives better science and better health outcomes. With this belief in mind, earlier this year, Genentech made a public commitment to foster belonging, advance inclusive research, and transform society. We see this as a broad D&I commitment that includes 1, doubling both Black, African American, Hispanic, Latinx, and Asian representation among directors and officers within our ranks. 2, committing $1 billion of our external spend every year to diverse suppliers. 3, building educational and career pathways in science and medicine that foster diverse future talent pipelines. And 4, advancing the inclusion of underrepresented groups in research, development, and care delivery to enrich scientific insights, achieve health equity, and ensure access for all. Now, already today, 52% of the officers and directors at Genentech are women. However, we can do better and we will be bolder. We're passionate about and committed to this work because we know that diversity and inclusion are the foundation for groundbreaking science, breakthrough treatments for patients, and more equitable access to healthcare for all. I encourage you to go to our website at www.gene.com to learn about Genentech's D&I commitments, as well as our research areas, sustainability goals, and community partnerships. I am truly excited about this discussion today. Our goal is to share more about the exciting developments happening in our industry, so you might have a fuller appreciation of the life sciences industry and the impact that we have on the Bay Area's economy. I hope you enjoy this session.
Thanks so much for that message, Mr. Hardy, on providing some fantastic context to the industry and the region as a whole. So with that, why don't we get started? Today, we're going to be hearing from some top industry and elected leaders about the exciting future of the life sciences industry. So we're going to start with some brief remarks from our speakers, followed by a Q&A. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. Most folks probably know this by now. We're living in a Zoom-dominated world, but please be sure to put your questions in the Q&A box. This will help us respond and sort through your questions and just keep everything running smoothly. So just a quick rundown of our fabulous list of panelists. Today, I am joined by State Senator Josh Becker, representing California Senate District 13, which encompasses most of San Mateo County and parts of Santa Clara County. Includes one of the Bay Area's biggest life sciences hubs. Michelle Nemitz, Bay Area Executive Director of Biocom. Alex Sidone, Vice President and Head of Business Development at Genentech. Mark Pope, Executive Managing Director at Cushman and Wakefield. And Venkatesh Srinivasan, Vice President of Manufacturing Sciences and Technology at Bayer. Welcome, everyone. So I'd love to start with you and invite you, Senator Becker, to talk to us a bit about the importance of life sciences to your district and the region overall.
Well, thank you. As you said, I represent really the entire Bay Area Peninsula and have the privilege of representing this area in the California State Senate. As many of you know, there's 40 state senators, so we represent 1 million people each. And to represent this industry is a particular privilege. It's such a key industry for the state and the region, as you mentioned. I mean, 3,400 companies, almost 400,000 jobs supported by those companies, and just growing here in the Bay Area. And that's what, it's been terrific to see here over the last, especially over the last 10, 20 years. I started my career in venture at Brentwood Venture Capital, which did both. Half the partners were doing biotech and medical device, and half the partners were doing IT. But you'd really say the area was dominated by IT, and now more and more we see the life sciences companies just growing across really my whole district. I'm starting in South San Francisco, but really now throughout the entire peninsula. As an entrepreneur myself in this space with an oncology company we started a number of years ago, I know how difficult it is, the high risk nature of this work, the need for talented folks across the spectrum, from research and development to manufacturing to regulatory. And again, I don't think most people appreciate the risks. We can spend years and years and years on a product and it doesn't work out. So it's really unique in that way. And so I just have respect for all the entrepreneurs and all the companies here and the work that everybody is doing. And it's my job to help make sure that we have the best, we give companies the best chance of growing here, of new ones of starting here. And that really, is a number of things. That's quality of life issues around housing and transportation. It's, of course, education, and then generally the regulatory environment and things like taxes and the other key things about our region and our state. And so that's really my commitment, is to work on these issues. Looking forward to a discussion on them today. I will say that it was really terrific in my first year to be able to focus so much on priorities like early childhood education. We did $5.5 billion, really historic going from really laggard in early childhood education, I would say, as a state, to one of the leaders now with a new grade for everyone of preschool, and then most low-income kids will actually get 2 years of preschool, substantial expansions of childcare. And of course, we have great, especially I'm very familiar with San Mateo, having been on the San Mateo Child Care Partnerships Council. We've got great work, and I was able to secure some additional money for the big lift. But we also put in $12 billion for homelessness over 2 years. We put in $15 billion for affordable housing. So we really try to address some of these areas, but there's a lot of work to do, especially in transportation, which is a big focus of mine, both with Caltrain, trying to get things like Dumbarton Rail off the ground, the ferry system. So we've got a lot of work to do here, and I'm really just excited to be here. I'm excited that we're having these kind of dialogues, and excited to participate.
Great, thanks so much, Senator Becker. And we'll definitely be diving deeper into sort of the public policy perspective that you're starting to offer in our Q&A section and among the other panelists as well. Michelle, why don't we go to you next, since Biocom recently released a really fantastic and robust report on the life sciences sector in California and the Bay Area. It would be great if you could just tell us a bit more about the report, maybe some high-level findings, any observations on the current state of the industry, in the Bay Area specifically.
Yeah, happy to do so, Abby. Thank you for having me here today. First of all, for those of you who are not familiar with Biocom California, we are a life sciences trade association, and we support the California life science industry. We were founded in 1995 in San Diego, and over the intervening 26 years, we have opened offices in Los Angeles, South San Francisco, Sacramento, and also we have an office in Washington, D.C. and in Tokyo. So we advocate for the life science industry in California at all levels of government and internationally as well. Every year, my role actually is the executive director for Biocom California in the Bay Area. So I oversee all programming and activities for our membership here in the Bay Area. Every year we put out a life science economic impact report. Abby, did you want to put those slides up? I've got a few slides showing some highlights.
Sure, we'll get those up in just a second.
I'll just speak to really quickly. Yeah, so excuse me, every year we put out an economic impact report showing some of the key metrics and economic impact of the industry. And in the state of California, the life science industry is a real key contributor to the state's economy. In 2021, the industry employed close to 500,000 employees, and it supported 1.4 million jobs throughout the state. It was a $405 billion economic impact to the state's economy, and supported 131 billion in labor income. So it's quite significant sector. It was kind of a bright spot in the economy. I think while the state's overall jobs decreased during the pandemic, the biotech sector, the life science sector had a slight increase. And so it was able to offset some of those jobs. Particularly in the biotechnology, the research and manufacturing, and the life science tool sectors, there were some pickups. There were some negative numbers as well in some of the other subsectors, but overall it was a net positive for the industry. Specific to the Bay Area, there are close to 179,000 people employed by the industry, and the industry generates 159 billion in economic activity. 400,000 total regional jobs are supported by the industry, which amounts to about $54 billion of labor income. And there are over 3,000 unique life science companies in the region, and 4,000 establishments. And the way we calculate that is a company could be, say, Thermo Fisher Scientific, for example, but Thermo Fisher Scientific has multiple sites, so those would be establishments. So 3,000 companies, 4,000 establishments in 2020 by our report. And there are many types of careers that these companies employ. Lots of very well-paying jobs, very interesting mission-driven jobs that provide the employees lifelong learning opportunities. Some of these jobs require scientific degrees, and they're scientists and engineers and so forth. But the industry really needs a variety of jobs to support manufacturing, project management, supply chain, logistics, information technology, regulatory, human resources. So there's a number of types of jobs available in the industry, just like any other industry. And I think that's one of the biggest myths about the life sciences is that you have to have a PhD and wear a white lab coat to work in it, but actually you don't. And to kind of augment the point that Mr. Hardy made at the beginning of today's webinar, diversity, equity, inclusion is really a focus area of the industry in general. And I know Biocom California has undertaken a serious focus in this area and reaching out to new and underrepresented communities to make them aware of all the opportunities that exist. Within the Bay Area, we've got 6 main subsectors, as you can see on this slide here. The largest subsectors are research and manufacturing, medical devices and equipment, biopharma manufacturing, and biotechnology research. All 6 of these combine to make a really significant economic impact here in the region. Next slide, please. Of the 9 counties in the Bay Area, as the senator mentioned, his district, San Mateo County and Santa Clara County, clearly are the leading areas where most of the life science is concentrated. You can see in terms of economic impact, in terms of the number of workers, and also the highest concentration of the number of companies. Santa Clara, San Mateo, and Alameda County lead the way. But San Francisco City and County also has a sizable amount of activity clustered mostly around UCSF and the Mission Bay area. And then if you look at Solano County, that's another Genentech manufacturing facility out there, significant also to that region. And you know, even up in Marin and Sonoma and Napa, there's economic activity, life science activity up there as well. So it really is spread all around the Bay Area. I think someone said earlier that the Bay Area is the birthplace of biotech, and that's absolutely true. It is a globally significant innovation ecosystem and has been for almost 50 years. It's grown up alongside the tech industry in Silicon Valley. And over the past several years, we've really witnessed a converging of the 2 sectors where tech applications are being applied to healthcare innovations and vice versa, and you know, creating a whole new digital health subsector that's going to shape the future of healthcare. There are a lot of positives, to be sure, very bullish on this industry, but it's not all rosy. There are some headwinds that we'll be discussing today. We need to make sure that local, state, and federal policymakers appreciate the value and importance of this industry and really take steps to ensure that it stays a vibrant sector of our economy. We need to focus on things like educated workforce, affordable housing, connected transportation systems, taxes, regulatory policies, IP protection, and other things that really encourage innovation and investment.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Your findings certainly make the business case for investing in the life sciences and sort of the business case for advocating for and investing in a more diverse workforce as well. So I think that segues well to our next speaker, Alex, as the head of business development at Genentech. It'd be great to hear your perspective on innovation, technology advancement in the industry. So Genentech's partnerships, technology development, licensing, any other aspects of business development in this sector.
Sure, thanks. I appreciate that. And fantastic to follow Alexander and Michelle as well. And I wanted to thank the Bay Area Council for the opportunity to offer remarks with these distinguished panelists. It really does take collaboration across kind of all aspects of life to make this happen. And it's great to see our political leaders, real estate experts, industry organizations, and colleagues that share the mission to help patients make this place special, the place that we work and that we're lucky enough to call home. So I thought I'd offer some specific remarks to give a little bit of history about Genentech and perhaps how we fit into that picture that Michelle painted for us. I think that the numbers are helpful to make some of the case. So there's a bit of a quantitative bit to my comments, and then a little bit on the qualitative side, because I think the magic is in between. It's not just the absolute dollars or absolute partnerships. It's the fact that having access to a diverse workforce that's skilled and trained across different sectors actually gives us advantages that I think are completely unique to California and to the area, and wanted to offer a few remarks there too. So since 1976, Genentech has pursued groundbreaking science, right? Started in South San Francisco. I think we are the pioneer company that people refer to when they say, when did it get started? And we've been the beneficiary of cooperation and workforce and talent ever since then. Over the last several years, we've launched 13 groundbreaking medicines, and we've been diligent in making these medicines available and accessible to the degree that we can. And we continue to invest more than $13 billion a year into R&D. We are preeminent in that regard in terms of the amount that we invest. And those investments obviously have trickle-down effects in terms of dollars. 13 billion is the amount that Roche, our parent company, spends in R&D. And what does that mean here at home? So Genentech has 5 manufacturing and distribution sites, including one of the largest manufacturing facilities in the world. We've invested over 4 billion in infrastructure over the last several years. We have 12,000 employees in California, including 5,000 in manufacturing. So to the point earlier where you need a lab coat and a PhD, that's not true. We have gratefully have an extremely diverse workforce that contributes to all elements of what it means to discover, make a medicine, manufacture it safely, and deliver it on time to patients in need. And for every 100 jobs that our South San Francisco campus generates, California gets an estimated 193 additional jobs. These are kind of in the indirects in order to facilitate what we do. So we've calculated roughly 3.2 billion in direct economic impact to the Bay Area. And we're being more mindful and diligent on how we do this, because we are the beneficiaries of having a diverse and inclusive workforce. We're actually asking our vendors and suppliers to make commitments, and we're willing to put our money where our mouth is and actually favor and make investments in and shift business towards companies that share our values in that regard. So Alexander gave some comments on these in the beginning in terms of the billion we commit to making sure that we have greater diversity in our suppliers, and that their commitments match our values for growing diversity in the space. And then I want to just speak from my position as the head of business development locally. As we are the collaborator function. We look out into the community, and so we're exposed to innovators across California and the world, but uniquely here in the Bay Area. What makes it special is this excellence of academic centers, biotech technology companies. So not just the biotech, but the fact that Silicon Valley and high tech is looking to disrupt the healthcare sector and is making inroads in that space. That is actually super exciting in terms of potentially being able to increase the precision of care. And because of this circulating capital and talent pool, we have among the more sophisticated entrepreneurs, investors, and workforce in the life sciences as well. And so any company starting in the area has the advantage of those advisors, of that workforce, of those industry organizations that are set up to support those innovations early, and then being able to access advisors and workforce that are trained by Venkatesh and his team, for example, or here at Genentech. I mean, all of that is part of the ecosystem that we all benefit from. And then in the partnering organization, we look to set up collaborations with these different organizations to support what we do internally. 99% of the innovation in medicine happens outside of Genentech. And so we're actively looking for collaborators throughout the area that can help us improve our offering to patients, understand disease better, and help us develop exceptional talent to be the future of healthcare going forward. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Alex, for your comments. And we'll switch it to Mark next. Like Michelle, Cushman & Wakefield also published a report recently on sort of the rapid growth of the life sciences industry in the state. And it also offers some really important data and insights on the real estate market. So could you maybe offer some high-level findings on that report?
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, Abby. Appreciate you guys making the time and the opportunity to talk to you. So I'm Mark Pope. I work at Cushman & Wakefield. I run our Northern California life science practice group. Quick background on Cushman, we're 35,000 employees in the US, 50,000 across the globe. And we advise tenants and landlords on the acquisition and disposition of real estate. The past 2 years have obviously been unique times, and one of the silver linings from where we sit has been, the expansion of the life science industry, nationally, globally, but especially locally. Bay Area currently has, about 45 million square feet of lab space, which, to give you some context, nationally, you're talking 150, 160 million square feet. So we're roughly 25% of the national market. And for a little additional context, the Silicon Valley from an office and R&D standpoint has 250 million square feet, right? So we are still a very small slice of the pie with a ton of room to grow. And market conditions are definitely driving new construction and the expansion of the kind of the real estate footprint for this type of product, although not quite as fast as we would like it to help accommodate all of the growing companies. Generally when people look at real estate, they look backwards, they look at lease comps or what are things selling for, and that's kind of the indicator for what's going on. We really feel that you have to look at venture capital and the IPO markets to give you any kind of forward indicator as to what we're seeing. And those markets have seen historic growth. More funding available through those channels than we've ever seen. So even though this run up has been going for 5+ years, we feel like we're still in the early stages. And again, though the pandemic hasn't necessarily been it's not been a good thing, but from a silver lining standpoint, it has really made the life science industry, it's kind of put it front and center. And so, we expect that rather than being seen as more of an alternative asset class, there is more and more money piling into this sector, which is good for all of us. One of the big challenges we're seeing right now is just a lack of space, right? Companies that we're a victim of our own success to a certain extent. And, you've got roughly 4 million square feet of demand from tenants in the market right now. And, supply is completely outpaced by that. We're in the biggest supply demand imbalance we've ever seen. Rents continue to grow, and, the vacancy continues to sit sub 5% in most of the core markets. And, it's just extremely challenging to get into space. We're facing challenges around, construction costs. Transportation, is definitely a front and center issue. Housing, talent, all these things that, again, growing pains as the industry continues to expand. The market obviously is exceptionally well bookended between UCSF, Stanford, and Berkeley. And so, you have NIH funding pouring into these areas and creating a very kind of organic ecosystem of, the Genentechs of the world at the largest end of the spectrum. And then, your 1 to 4 person companies that are coming out of the university and that making that tech transfer into the commercial side of the business. So again, super exciting time for us, working with, your earliest stage startups to your big pharmas of the world. And, looking forward to seeing the market continue to perform for a long time.
Great. Thanks so much, Mark. And we'll definitely speak more to, what you mentioned about constraints in housing and commercial space more in our Q&A section. But I wanted to, last but not least, welcome Venkatesh to make some comments on sort of Bayer's perspective on the life sciences and, as the Vice President of Manufacturing Sciences, maybe like the importance and role that manufacturing plays in this industry.
All right, Abby, thanks for the tip. And really thanks to the speakers. I think they've set up this conversation really very well. So I have the privilege of following my esteemed colleagues here. I think what makes me most proud to be part of this business is Bayer's vision, the stated vision of health for all and hunger for none. Bayer is a diverse business. We have both pharmaceutical as well as agricultural businesses. And truly, this mission is very inspiring to really be for health for all and hunger for none. And a part of that is really exemplified in what we do at Berkeley. Berkeley has been, like Genentech, in the biotech business for a very long time. It started with our acquisition of Miles, biotech, which has been around since the late 1800s in the Bay Area. And we were very fortunate to acquire that space in Berkeley. And since 1979, Bayer has had a presence in the pharmaceutical business here in the Bay Area. And what we've been really proud of is our capacity and our capability to innovate very early in this industry. We had very early in our life cycle here in the Bay Area embraced technologies such as single-use and continuous manufacturing, which are really in vogue right now, and gathering so much attention within regulatory circles as well as manufacturing circles. And Bayer was very proud to participate in that way. We've incorporated these technologies very early into our manufacturing cycle. And what is really exciting is that being in this urban setting in Berkeley, it really compelled us to form this extremely strong partnership with our Berkeley community folks. And the investment that Bayer has made consistently over the years in the community and built this partnership, it really is one of the most enduring examples of such a city and company partnership in this urban setting. So we're so excited now to expand this into getting into even more novel technologies and new modalities such as cell and gene therapy. And Bayer is making huge investments right now in the cell and gene therapy area. We're building 2 new manufacturing facilities here. Really looking for and embracing the talent that the Bay Area really offers us. I think Alex pointed this out as well. This is an incredible place to work. And just thinking about what we can accomplish together, scientists, technologists, and people of every description, every skill set that can really be employed in these industries. I think Bayer is really, we're very excited. And now we are in the process of negotiating another 30-year extension of our development agreement with the city of Berkeley. And this will allow us to expand into the production of the new modalities as well, and completely redefine our campus so that it becomes a really attractive innovation hub in the area of biotechnology. And this is an activity that Bayer has been pursuing since the last few years. And we are now at the cusp of that. So I'd really like to reach out and thank our Berkeley partners, City of Berkeley. They've been incredible partners with us. We've already finished one 30-year agreement with the city, and now we're about to launch into another 30-year agreement with enormous economic impact in the area. We're expecting to invest more than $1 billion in the next several years, and with the corresponding impact in the community. So, Josh pointed out, Senator Becker pointed out some numbers about, what the huge economic impact is in this area. And Alex as well talked about, almost a one-to-one impact of the jobs that we create in Berkeley. They will be reflected in the community at large. So truly excited to be part of the Bayer mission here, health for all and hunger for none. And really proud to be part of the Bayer Berkeley site in delivering the novel medicines and really making a tremendous impact on our patients by increasing their quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venkatesh. Thanks for mentioning sort of the Bayer's extension of your 30-year development agreement. Our team here at the Economic Institute actually released an economic impact study of the Bayer biopharmaceutical campus earlier this year, where we advocated for this renewed agreement and found that the proposed expansion would nearly double the number of jobs in the East Bay and increase its current annual economic impact by nearly 90%. So we'll definitely get to that more in the Q&A section because there's a lot more to say about that. But as we enter this Q&A section of the discussion, I'm just going to ask our panelists some questions, but please, audience members, feel free to continue entering questions in the Q&A box, and I'll try to get to them, as many as we can, towards the end of the discussion. And also to our panelists, as always, my questions will be targeted to specific folks, but feel free to jump in if you have something to add or expand on. This can really be an informal sort of discussion conversation. So my first question is to you, Mark, but Venkatesh, I think this applies to you too, so feel free to step in if you have anything to add. But many of the large life sciences companies, some of which are represented on this panel, Bayer, Genentech, Gilead, have announced large expansions in our region. So how do we continue to retain and grow our life sciences companies over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years, especially given that squeeze on space that you mentioned in your earlier comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it at this kind of moment in time and space is the biggest challenge. It's definitely something that can be solved over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. And I think over that horizon, you're going to see other challenges. Transportation is going to be an absolutely critical piece of it. And, that's something that I know that the municipalities are working through, trying to sort out, things like transportation demand management programs that, are looking to provide some form of traffic relief, electrification of Caltrain. So we think we've got programs in the works, but it's going to continue to be an issue in housing, right? Housing is always going to be an issue. It has been an issue here historically. Need somewhere for these employees to live. And right now that's a major challenge. But Venkatesh, I think you could probably shed some firsthand experience on that.
Well, I don't think I'm quite qualified to speak by the housing situation, Mark, but I can certainly speak to, an important point that was touched on by Alex earlier as well, and Alexander Hardy, on the importance of creating an environment where our diverse populations can find well-paying jobs, and therefore, adapt better to the Bay Area environment. The Bay Area is a tough, real estate market, as we know, and the economic impact that our companies have makes a huge difference to the quality of lives of the folks that we serve. And Bayer is particularly, proud that in our site in Berkeley, over 70% of our team members are people of color. And we have over 40 different nationalities represented on our site. So an incredibly diverse and vibrant community of people that we work with and have the pleasure of working with every day. And what is particularly great is how we're able to provide decent jobs that allow people to sustain themselves in the Bay Area for the number of years that we've been here. So really very happy to be part of the tradition and help in really advancing the community's needs.
Great, thanks, Venkatesh. And speaking of some of sort of the challenges and limits that we've been seeing, I think Michelle sort of, as highlighted in the Biocom's industry report, the outlook for life sciences in 2021 is mostly positive, but there are some big constraints and risks. And the report mentions supply chain disruptions, restrictions on foreign employees and students, regulatory issues, housing, as we've mentioned, and those all remain very pertinent. So could you maybe talk a little bit more about these challenges and any possible solutions? And of course, other panelists, feel free to jump in as well.
You'd think it 2 years later, I'd figure out the mute button. I'm happy to discuss these things. Yeah, I just want to tag on a little bit to the previous conversation because it is really important to prepare, the workforce locally to be able to come into this industry and keep it vital and strong. It's one of the biggest challenges facing the industry that we hear from our members is the ability to hire people. And so we need to ensure that we've got, an educated and skilled workforce locally. We need to ensure that there's an H-1B visa program that allows for the, bringing in of skilled workers as needed and so forth. And that's not just, for the life science industry, that's for other industries as well. So it's really important that we're able to keep these sectors vital and vibrant through the talent needs that it has. But equally important is really expanding the opportunity to new communities. And some of the things that we've been doing here in the Bay Area is partnering with local school districts like Hayward and Alameda through their career pathways programs and just reaching out to middle school and high school students, bringing industry speakers into the classrooms to talk about what the industry is and does and what some of the jobs are. And again, to some of the points that have been made earlier, it's not all about science jobs. It's not all about getting a PhD. It's about learning how to, maybe design and build a life science facility. That is a really important part of this ecosystem. It's about maybe becoming a lawyer and learning how to, protect intellectual property. Or it's about understanding some of the regulatory policies and things like that. So there's a lot of different jobs and we're partnering with some of these school districts to reach out to new and diverse communities in order to make them aware of the opportunities because, some of these folks may not know anyone who works in the industry. They may not even know the industry exists. And there's a lot of opportunities for everybody there. There's some other things, I think in terms of attracting talent, of course, to the Bay Area, you have to have affordable housing. You've got to have connected transportation systems. some of this has been said before, but this is really critical to the quality of life here. It makes it challenging for companies to be able to hire people from outside the region if they're not able to hire from within it. So that is a challenge. The taxes and the regulatory landscape, I think, is something that we need to constantly be vigilant about. As an industry association, we are fully supportive of restoring the R&D and NOL tax credits at the state level. And we are working at the federal level as well on some of the drug pricing legislation that's being discussed. We want to make sure that we have policies and regulations in place that don't deter innovation and don't deter investment in innovation, but rather encourage it. And so these are some of the things that we're constantly working on for our members at the state and at the federal level. And then, of course, IP protection is an important part of our industry, as well as the tech industry and other industries. We need to make sure that we've got a robust protection of intellectual property so that entrepreneurs can take their technologies and their discoveries forward and commercialize them into startups and advance them, to create products that ultimately are really important for the betterment of human health. So we want to make sure that that's protected as well. So yeah, it's an amazing industry. I think generally speaking, there's so many positive things to talk about. We're on the cusp of, amazing scientific innovation and breakthroughs with CRISPR, with cell and gene therapy, with the convergence of tech and biotech. There's so many positives. We just need to make sure that we're aware of what the headwinds are and that we're kind of tackling them in a smart and effective way.
Thanks, Michelle, for those comments. And we'll come back because there's an audience question that sort of relates to workforce training and workforce talent pipeline programs that are in place to ensure that there are opportunities for everyone to enter this industry. So I can get to that in a second, but I would love to ask Senator Becker, maybe to offer a public policy perspective on this, how we can continue to attract and retain top talent despite our housing affordability crisis and other crises. And also if you could maybe speak to the economic impact of the pandemic was huge, and California put limits on the research and development tax credit and suspended the use of the net operating loss deduction for business. So, these programs have been critical in incentivizing job creation during the pandemic or pre-pandemic and the development of life-saving therapies. So efforts to restore these programs came up short in the legislature this year, and it would be great to hear what your outlook is for them in the future.
Yeah, thanks. Well, just to address that first. Yeah, that was disappointing and frustrating. I led an effort, and we had about between 15 and 20 senators sign a letter to try to get that the tax credit restored. And we did come up short. I think it will get included. It's sort of top of the list to get included in January when we come back. And so I'm hopeful that we can restore it for future years. But I do know that's important and had a number of conversations with the industry. We do make it difficult. Oops, I'll change my camera a minute. For companies in many ways, and that's one of the ways that we actually make it, something positive that we do for companies. And that's one thing I think about. It's not just, okay, how do we make this regulation 10% less onerous? It's about how do we actually make this an encouraging place to do business. And for this industry, I know that's important, and we want to encourage that kind of R&D. So stay tuned on that. On the other part, we need to do our job at the state level, and I need to do my job on the quality of life issues that we mentioned, on housing, on transportation, on education. But then we need to continue to work and partner at the regional level and at the local level. And what's great is to see companies step forward. The work that Alexander Hardy mentioned and the work that others are doing, the work that Bayer is doing is tremendous, and it's very helpful. I've had a lot of conversations with Abbott Labs about work they're doing actually in some cases in other states with the community college system, and how can we integrate better with our community college systems. So that's one thing that I'm focused on, and in conversations with John Pimentel and some of our Maurice Goodman and some of our community college trustees are very interested in. So how do we do that better? And I love the idea of starting earlier. I mean, if we're really going to get disadvantaged communities and really, focus on economic mobility, then we do need to start earlier in this field. And so middle schools and high schools. So it's tremendous to hear about what's already been done. I just pinged the CEO, the principal of our high school, Menlo Atherton, where my kids go, big, very diverse public high school, to see if they're involved at all in any of these projects and partnerships. So great to see companies stepping up in that way, but also in housing and transportation. And again, I'll mention just because I've talked to Alexander Hardy, but the willingness of CEOs personally to engage in some of these efforts around, especially around regional transportation issues, because it is going to take a lot of focus and effort. We are going to electrify Caltrain. I believe that is going to happen, but we don't really get the full benefit of it unless we actually do grade separations, which is about another $10 billion project. And I mentioned things like Dumbarton Rail to actually connect, area where jobs are more plentiful with areas where, housing is a bit more affordable. So really need all hands on deck in those efforts. And anyone who wants to help out can certainly contact our office, but I really appreciate the industry engaging in a positive way in housing and transportation and education. And then, I need to do my job and make sure that we get support for those as well as for the industry as a whole at the state level.
Thanks, Senator Becker. And if other folks want to jump in on the public policy side of things, or, back to that question on workforce talent pipeline programs and other ways to ensure that there's a diverse workforce in this industry, if anyone wants to jump in.
I'm happy to jump in really quickly just to talk about some of the things that we as an industry organization are doing. We have a Biocom California Institute, which is a standalone 501c3, and their sole focus is to focus on workforce development for the industry. They have a number of programs in place. Just earlier this week, we hosted a veterans symposium. And so we have a veterans fellowship program where we help veterans who are transitioning out of their military service into the life sciences, and we partner them with a mentor in the industry who is also a veteran and help folks come into the industry that way. On a broader scale, though, we have a number of K through 12 educator training programs. So we're teaching, we're partnering with some of the leading companies in the industry to bring awareness of some of the latest scientific methodologies to teachers, K through 12 levels. So the whole spectrum of science teachers getting kind of exposure to some of these cutting edge technologies and learning how to talk about it and teach it in an age appropriate way to their students. We are also working with the Cal State system on building a stackable credential that's industry vetted, so that the curriculum that is actually being taught at the Cal State level is targeted and really applicable to the needs of the industry. So we're working specifically with some of the professors in the Cal State system. We're piloting this now at 3 of the Cal State universities in Southern California, but we'll be rolling it out across the whole system, hopefully in the near future. And so we're working with them to get their curriculum, to bring subject matter experts from the industry to review the curriculum and to make changes where they think changes are needed, and then make sure that what's actually being taught is something that is desired, when these graduates come out of these systems. So there's a number of things that we're working on. Those are some examples.
I could also offer that there's some specific examples that I think kind of highlight kind of the values that we're putting at work. So Future Lab is one. That's something that Genentech co-developed, the South San Francisco district, to actually help not just students, but teachers be able to teach and engage in science, and actually open up a conduit where volunteers that are interested in supporting these efforts can come in and join. And that leads to more fulfillment and wholeness for the workforce as well, to be able to engage the community directly and help others kind of find opportunity in the space. We've also worked with San Francisco State university as well in terms of curriculum to broaden the impact further. And additionally, there's been even more work in committing up to $10.5 million statewide to also broaden curriculum and opportunity and access to biotech education. And this is the notion that the more that is invested in the space, the greater degree of scientific fluency there is in the community, whether these scientists or scientifically literate students and then coworkers go on to life sciences or not, there's already a benefit of just getting people more comfortable with data, this kind of critical thinking, and being able to interpret the world around them. To those that move on into life sciences, then there's a way to start demonstrating kind of a longer term commitment for workforce development that we take very seriously. And then outside, we're committing resources to help with Howard University's pharmacist program as well, again, to broaden the diversity and the inclusion, because in order to treat communities, it helps so much when caregivers, providers, influencers are from the community and can speak to the community needs specifically. So this is another example of trying to make investments to help bring and broaden the access to both kind of the knowledge, the critical thinking, the commentary on what medicines matter, what outcomes are relevant for different communities, so that there's a more vibrant discussion in terms of what interventions can bring relief, what kinds of policies, what kinds of needs get prioritized in the context of developing the next generation of medicines.
Right. And Alex, thank you for teeing that up so well. I wanted to jump in and add as well. Almost 50% of our community investments are directed at STEM education and CTE, and really intended to drive sort of equity outcomes, all the way from kindergarten to community college. So we take this community responsibility very seriously, and I couldn't agree more with Alex on where the successful outcomes of these would result in just a tremendously differently equipped workforce capable of taking on very different careers. We're also making investments, to promote climate action, health equity in this area, and that's a very key part of our investment. And affordable housing, finally, to tee off what Mark was bringing up as well. So Bayer's really committed to making big investments in these areas, and a significant amount of our community investments are going to be spent in these categories, all really adding up to developing and building up that the workforce and the folks here, so that they can have a better life at the end of this. Yeah.
Thank you all for your comments, and cognizant of time. So I just want to at least get in a one or two audience questions. One of them I saw it, ultimately this webinar is titled, "Can the Bay Area Maintain its Life Sciences Edge?" And Stephanie Kim Poston asked a great question. I think that ties into that overall theme. So if any of you want to jump in on this, it seems like the Bay Area / California went from being the leader in life sciences and biotech to one of the leaders in life sciences and biotech, and mentions Greater Boston, Kendall Square, where I'm actually from. So definitely used to a robust life sciences industry. So what are some things that you and your teams are thinking about to position the Bay Area as the leader to maintain our state's competitive edge?
Well, I'll start. I think one of the unique aspects of the Bay Area is that we have both, the biggest life science sector and Silicon Valley. And I think and that makes the Bay Area very unique in that ways. And I think as those two sectors converge, and they are definitely converging, we are sitting on the cusp of another, kind of golden age of life science or biotech or whatever you want to call it. Digital health, the future of healthcare is going to happen right here. I think we're in a very unique position in that regard. We just need to make sure that we keep protecting, the environment and making it a encouraging place for innovation and a place where companies can grow and scale and prosper and not have to leave the region to grow and scale.
Right.
Thanks, Michelle, for that. And another, interesting and very topical question that Rob Robertson asked, and the COVID-19 pandemic has really fundamentally redesigned the workplace. I'm sitting here in my bedroom as I moderate this webinar. And the rise of remote work has really, widened companies' talent pools and access to skills, but has also really raised flags about retaining local talent. So, Rob asks, is the panel concerned about the apparent mass exodus from California that has come out of the work from home and COVID and post-COVID environment? So if any of you guys want to speak to that and sort of how maybe the remote work has affected life sciences so far and how it will shape the future of the industry.
I can start speaking to that, Abby, and then we'll let other people pick up.
I'm happy to jump in.
It has been a fascinating time, right? I mean, our industry was so much a place where people actually got together and made things happen in a very, very physical space. But it is impressive. It is really impressive to see how the industry has adapted and what we've been actually capable of doing despite working remotely. And it has been really impressive. And I think our entire work culture is evolving to accept that and really embrace that new reality as well, right? So to the extent that it's possible for our workforce to be distributed in that way, I think the bioscience industry has completely embraced that. Now, to speak about what has that done to talent and talent availability, I think the industry continues to grow at an incredible pace. And it is a scramble to get good talent in the Bay Area. But this is what tells me that the Bay Area is still so vital, because there is intense competition between all of us in a very friendly way. But we absolutely feed off of this energy and invite people to come and participate in this ecosystem. Right? It's one of the beautiful things about the Bay Area. Notwithstanding the other challenges that still do exist and are very real in terms of real estate prices and housing and affordability and everything else, this is still a hugely attractive place. And I think one thing that really stands out to me in terms of how the Bay Area is different is this continuum that Alexander Hardy mentioned earlier. All the way going from discovery to manufacturing is a very unique aspect of what happens in the Bay Area. It's not just focused on discovery or research or development, but the tremendous manufacturing infrastructure that the life science companies have created here allows really the rest of that ecosystem to thrive and really allows the entrepreneurship to thrive, because there is a clear line of sight to what that end looks like at the end in terms of partnership and everything else that we like to do. I think that's very unique in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I'll just add that too. I do agree. I think that is unique. And I do think that, yes, while some jobs will be remote, compared to the IT industry, actually much more is in person in this industry. And so I think having these spaces, having these companies really does mean long-term employment, where in the tech industry, yes, as well, but there's a little bit more actually remote work happening, at least from what I've seen. So and then I just want to say as we wrap up, I look forward, Victor from my office is also on this call, Victor Torres, and we look forward to engaging with any of you on both, again, the quality of life issues or the business issues going forward. Again, having experience, I'd say, in this industry, a bit of a different perspective up in Sacramento. So look forward to engaging with folks.
And Alex, it looked like you wanted to say one more thing, and then you're going to do that before I close out.
Okay, well, so just quickly, yeah. I mean, we're trying to. I think Venkatesh nailed it, and I really appreciate that Senator Becker is hearing us on this. I would say that we're trying to move to this model, or consider this model of campus as a magnet. To kind of remind people that are kind of have fatigue from the more brittle transactional relationships that they've enjoyed via Zoom, which is fantastic when everyone's on the same playing field. But now when there's a hybrid, and there's some advantage to actually getting back together. I just had a colleague wave to me through the door, because we're excited. I haven't seen him in a year and a half, so I can understand. I can't wait to go see him too. I do think there's going to be an opportunity to really use the magnet of campus to highlight collaboration and the serendipity and spontaneity that we've missed. So I'm hoping that there's a way that hybrid begins to have more feelings like it used to. I don't think we're ever going back to the way it was, but I do think there's a real opportunity to community build and really recatalyze some of that innovation that came through those random interactions that I think most of our industry has been missing.
Absolutely. And any final words from any of our panelists before I close out for the afternoon? Thank you all so much for joining us today, to our audience, and obviously to our wonderful panelists. This was a really fantastic discussion, and I wish it could continue, but we got to go. So Senator Becker, Venkatesh, Alex, Michelle, Mark, thank you all for being here. And I also want to thank Ariane Hogan at Genentech for her support in organizing this webinar. And again, Genentech for sponsoring this important conversation. So have a great afternoon, everybody, and have a good one.
Thank you.